Congress takes the next steps with impeachment. President Trump has signed the USMCA, and the Bernie-Warren feud is continuing.
Joining us to weigh in on all of this is Congressman Ro Khanna of California. He's a member of the House Armed Services Budget and Oversight Committee. He is also a national campaign co-chairman for Senator Bernie Sanders. Great to see you, Congressman.
Crystal, it's great to be back on.
Of course. So we wanted to ask you about the timing of impeachment here. I mean, it's coming right at a very inopportune moment in terms of presidential politics. Are you concerned about how it's going to take all the candidates, the senators in particular, and Bernie Sanders off the trail?
I'm not concerned, and the reason I'm not concerned is Bernie Sanders has the biggest grassroots organization in Iowa. He has some very high-profile surrogates. Just today, Mark Pocan, the chair of the Progressive Caucus, endorsed him. The reason that's relevant is Mark Pocan is from the neighboring state of Wisconsin, and he's going to be all over Iowa making the case that Bernie has the best chance to put Wisconsin back in the Democratic column. And Bernie Sanders will be going to Iowa when he's not in the trial. So I think it should be fine.
So, Congressman, as a national campaign co-chair for Bernie Sanders, I mean, what did you make, of course, what we're all talking about this morning, the audio that showed last night, Senator Warren accusing the senator of lying about her, calling her a liar on national television? Just how are you navigating that as a campaign, and what's your view of it personally?
I think we need to move on, and we need to talk about the issues that really matter, getting us out of war in Yemen, stopping war in Iran, expanding Medicare so that we have Medicare for all, having free public college, and make the issues the difference in this campaign so that we actually elect a progressive and don't have a centrist emerge as the nominee. And so I agree with a lot of the groups who've been saying, let's get the progressives all marching in the same direction.
Has this changed your view of Senator Warren?
Now, look, campaigns are heated moments. There are ups and downs in campaigns, but I have tremendous admiration and respect for Senator Warren. I mean, she was the leading scholar on bankruptcy laws. She helped make a big difference for working families. She created the Consumer Protection Bureau. So I think you have to look at campaigns for what they are, and I have no doubt that the progressive movement needs her leadership as well.
So, Congressman, you were also one of the reasons that we originally wanted to speak with you. You were one of the drivers of the War Powers Resolution, trying to get that attached to the NDAA ahead of that strike on Qasem Soleimani. Now, are you still disappointed with Democratic leadership for not pushing harder in order to get that resolution added to the NDAA? And what's your next steps forward on that front?
Well, I appreciate your mentioning that amendment. We had an amendment that would have prohibited a single dollar for going into an offensive strike against Iran or an Iranian official. It had 27 Republicans who voted for it, including Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz. It would have prevented the Soleimani strike, and it would have prevented the escalation that we have seen of the conflict in the Middle East. I am disappointed that Congress, that it was stripped from the National Defense Authorization. As you know, I went on the floor and blasted the process and said we should not have given the Pentagon a $738 billion blank check. But I'm encouraged that the leadership is now committed to bringing that amendment back onto the floor. We're going to have a vote on it next week after we're back. So there have been positive developments.
Yeah. Congressman, I mean, is it your view that impeachment has, in a sense, distracted from some of these other incredibly important issues? I mean, what could be more important to the American people than war and peace? And while so much political capital and media attention, et cetera, has been fixated on what exactly happened with the president in Ukraine, he was just allowed to have a blank check to assassinate Qasem Soleimani, putting us on a war footing with Iran and potentially still provoking a hot war with that nation. Do you think that impeachment has caused Democratic leadership to take their eye off the ball?
Well, I think impeachment obviously was justified and then we had to act. I mean, the president blatantly violated the Constitution by pressuring Zelensky to do him a political favor. And so the House had our duty was to act to impeach him. But I do think that the media needs to be covering some of these other issues. And the fact was that more attention should have been paid to the National Defense Authorization Act. More attention should have been paid to our efforts and warnings back then that we can't give the Pentagon a blank check, that we need to prevent an offensive strike in Iran. And now people are finally paying attention to the issue, and we should be having more attention paid to the increased troops and increased risk in the region.
So, Congressman, I think one thing we focus on the show is that it doesn't seem like we're told that people can walk and chew gum at the same time. Do you still hold that view now that we're seeing this head into the Senate and that we're seeing literally a zero-sum game when it comes to media attention and keeping the senators off the trail in exchange for something that we know the outcome already about how this is going to go?
Well, look, Tim Kaine is offering a war powers resolution to help prevent a war in Iran. My understanding is that is going to get a vote before the impeachment trial begins. I don't anticipate the trial lasting a long time. I think we need to get the facts out there. It would be good to hear from John Bolton or Mick Mulvaney. And we have to do our constitutional responsibility. That, though, doesn't mean that we, in other ways, stop resisting the president. I mean, you can't say we're resisting the president and then hand the Pentagon $738 billion, $120 billion more than Barack Obama's budget, over half of our federal budget, with no restrictions on what the Pentagon can do. So what I think is that we need to have substantive restrictions on this president's ability to go to war overseas.
And Congressman, you've been out campaigning on the trail with Senator Sanders and for Senator Sanders. What are the issues that voters typically raise with you? And, you know, one thing that we hear repeatedly is that impeachment and what the news media is consistently focused on with wall-to-wall coverage barely ever comes up.
Well, when I was out in Iowa with the senator this past week, Iran was a huge issue. I think the senator's extraordinary leadership on stopping this war in Iran, in stopping the massacre that's going on in Yemen, in opposing the Iraq war, those are values that particularly resonate in Iowa. His focus on getting everyone health care and Medicare for all and being unabashed about that and saying, look, people are paying $12,000 for premiums, up to $20,000 for health care. Now they're not going to be paying anything, and they're going to finally get hearing aids and dental and vision and long-term care. That's resonating. And then climate change. I mean, the senator was just endorsed by the Sunrise Movement. Young people in particular are very passionate about making sure we have a vision for renewable energy, for creating millions of new jobs and tackling the biggest crisis in climate change.
Congressman, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. It's great to hear from you.
Thanks for joining us, sir.
It's always great to be on. Thank you.
And we'll have more Rising for you after this.